non-serious things.
All right. Are you going to open in prayer?
I am going to open in prayer. Abba, thank you for today. Thank you for how gorgeous it is outside, even if it is crisp and cold. I love it, and thank you for this weather. Thank you for the sun shining down that reminds us of your life in our lives. Thank you for everybody that's here today. Thank you for Shabbat that we had yesterday and meeting with you and learning about you and stuff with you. Thank you for more, I guess, continued material for blessing our children. I pray that we continue to, or that we're able to continue to apply this, to learn more from it, to learn about you and how you want us to behave as parents, as family, and how you bless us and we transfer that down. We thank you so much, and we love you and praise you just who you are because you're wonderful. It's in Yeshua's name we pray. Amen.
All right. Who would like to share maybe some opening thoughts on this chapter? Oh, you do?
This most of this chapter is left up to the women. So have at it. I'm going to go to sleep.
Well, keep in mind,
not all of it was.
You were once a child, so this is still applicable to you.
I know, but there was so much of it that it was like, in infancy, it was like, yeah, okay, Dad, yeah, you've got a part, but this is all Mom's. That's if I were to sum up the chapter, that's how I would sum it up. Mom's just parts of your job. Not that I agree that's true. The amount of time he spent on it kind of made you go, man, do you think we have?
All right, your time is coming.
What? Oh, I know. Hey, you know me. I am fully active in every season, as all men should be. But he spent a lot of time talking about how important the mother's role is. Not that it's only yours, but that's super important.
Josh, did you have something
you wanted to admonish?
I would like to agree but disagree. The fact that it's mostly for mothers type of thing, yes, there's a lot that is nourishing of for mothers, obviously what this chapter is about, but I was a stay-at-home dad, so I related with a lot of it from the child raising side, and there was a lot of reflex that I needed to do inside and still need to do. Like, just like, man, I could have done so much better, and I'm still trying to do better, but this chapter hit me really hard just because of probably that aspect, because I was more hands-on with the children raising, and I wasn't equipped and I wasn't ready. And I feel like, they always say, oh, you're never ready, you'll know when you're ready type of thing, whatever. But I felt all the prayers, everything that they led us through on this chapter was really important. And I felt just about every single one of them really deep. So
that's awesome. That's a really good perspective too. And we said the same thing. We were like, well, sorry, one of the same things, which was, you always feel like you're not doing, or you always feel unprepared. And oh man, maybe we messed up. But that's where the reflection comes in, and that's where some of the remedial action comes to go ahead and go before Abba and clear that up and begin to bless children even when we miss the opportunity.
I hope in the end it isn't crutch the right word here. Maybe it is, maybe it isn't. But I hope it's not a crutch to say, because I really heavily lean on know better, do better.
Yeah.
And so I don't usually hold myself guilty when I've messed up, because I've never intentionally messed up. I don't wake up in the morning and say, how can I screw up my children today? But as new information comes in, I can reflect back and be like, oh man, I kind of screwed up there. Maybe it doesn't mean I screwed up my children, but I definitely made a mistake. But I didn't know better. So I kind of...
There's a difference between holding yourself guilty and holding yourself accountable.
Sure.
When you hold yourself accountable, like we try to do, then you can go back and go, okay, now I know better, now I can do better. and now I can try to fix whatever it was in the past.
Tammy, I think your hand was up first.
Just wanted to comment on the story of the lady who was so damaged from the thing her parents couldn't help. And how many times does that happen, where there are situations that are just nobody's fault, really. Now, maybe they could have been more aware of the possibility of that messing her up and tried to, but they didn't know that either, obviously. Because like you said, they wouldn't have intentionally left her vulnerable and hurting. That blessed me, because that gives such hope for us, because whether it was a situation like that was really unavoidable at the time, or it's just something that we didn't know, there's so much grace, and we can do, if we fall back on knowing him, knowing the Father and his ways, and as we're learning more and more to rely on the Holy Spirit to reveal things, then we can seek him more over the damaged parts of ourselves and our children, to get healing and to go forward and be a viable part of the kingdom. So that's kind of was, I guess, my take on that.
Yeah, that story really spoke to me in a way that we need to be more conscious and aware of what's going on, because just like he said, if the parents had really realized, what we would do in our day today is we just pull out that green prayer and we green prayer our child. That's all they needed, and instead it wasn't seen. So
I just want to follow up real quick, because when my oldest son, the one I'm having trouble with, was 5, or almost 5, he was right in that area. I made a stupid mistake. We were all gathered and we were going to go check out a new building for our fellowship, and I heard him say, "I'm riding with Josh." And so in my mind, I dropped the ball. I presumed he got in the car with my friend. I got in someone else's car. He got in our car and waited on me, and we left him. Oh, and I didn't know for maybe 10 or 15 minutes, and it wasn't very far away, but it was still, we drove away and left him in the parking lot. And then about the time I was wondering where he was, his little friend Josh came in there and said, "Where's Bubba?" And I realized it. We raced over. The police were already there. It was a big traumatic thing. And so, I felt guilty for a long time. And I know I prayed. I don't remember what I prayed. And I think we probably prayed over him, but I still worried that he'd have lasting repercussions. But I still have to trust that the grace is there, to cover that.
Oh wow. Jessica.
So, one of the things that I didn't think that he spoke about in the book, but would have been relevant, or maybe I just missed it, was the fact that the Israelites would always have generational families living in the home, and so the older women would teach the younger women how to be a mom, and
like
that's one. What was that?
Like the scripture says to do.
Yeah. And so, like where it says, older women teach the younger women how to love your husbands, and also, how to raise your children. And that's one of the many blessings that was available to them that our society and the enemy is just taken from our culture, because we're not blessed in that way. And so I thought that was really evident in this chapter more than others. And I do want to speak to what Josh talked about. So, and I think that's another big cultural issue that we have, is that women are trained or recommended to work outside the home. And like he had talked about it in the book about women not being there. And so I wasn't there. I was working full time. So Josh was the stay-at-home dad. And women and men have different roles. And I don't think that that's taught as heavily in our culture, that they've always made, oh, you're the same, equality, when really it's not the same. And so I think that's a big curse that's been put on our culture, instead of a blessing that would have been there, back in the day. There were a lot of parts to this chapter that really affected me, both as me being a child and us having children. And I can't remember them right now because I can't remember all of them. So I was listening to the chapter and I definitely was like, oh, I want to talk about this. And now I should have wrote it down. So I'm sure as we talk about it, I'll remember.
We
So,
will
yeah.
also do it. And when we go through it, we'll get it, I'm sure.
I missed whatever that was.
That was really muffled, yeah.
I apologize. My earpiece might be malfunctioning. I said we were driving, so there was no writing down, but I'm
Oh,
sure when
true.
we come across it, it'll come back up. And I could pull up the book again too. So while we go through
Yeah.
it, sorry.
Yeah, this particular chapter, we have only listened to it. We practically listened to the whole book on the way home from Sukkot. And then yesterday on our way to fellowship, we listened to it twice in a row.
Mm-hmm.
I felt like, I don't know about for Drew, because again, like you said, it's so heavily the mother focused on, but I needed to listen to it once as the child and then once as the parent.
Jessica said something important too when she was talking about roles for men and women, and everyone wants equality. Important distinction, in my opinion, is, I mean, we can argue about equality of roles, but we're both still equal of importance and value, and I think that's something that's important to remember, because we see a lot of, even in the Torah walk, we see this. Okay, well then, the man is supposed to be the head of the household. Okay, awesome. I'm down with that. That's fine. That's my responsibility. But it doesn't make my wife any less important than me. And the way I look at it is, if I have dominion over my home, it's to create an environment in which they can thrive, that I do elevate Karen to a level of importance actually over myself in submission to Yeshua.
I'd like to have us touch on the blessing and cursing in infancy and early childhood. This is on pages 122 and 123 of the book. So blessing at the time of infancy may include the parents communicating verbally and physically that the child is wanted, accepted, received, and welcomed, with the mother in particular loving, holding, and physically nurturing the baby. 2, the mother breastfeeding the infant to help create a physical and emotional bond. 3, the mother giving consistent care and meeting the child's physical and emotional needs, thus encouraging him to trust someone outside himself to meet his needs. And 4, the father expressing significant amounts of physical touch and affection. Olga.
With my family, now it wasn't most of my family were unsaved until here the last 2 years, and except for a sister, and she was very separate from everyone else. I started when all of my nieces and nephews started having children, which were all about the same age. I would go to the hospital and bless those children. and I would do it openly. And I think the last two, and I know like I'm not a parent. I don't know, like God just, I just really feel like y'all said, I want you to go bless these children. And then the last two, the parents didn't even let me know that they were having them. And the difference in the children, and I'm just an aunt or a cousin or something, I mean, depending on the situation. And and the last two are not like all the other ones. They're very sweet and kind and loving. And the last two are they live with my one sister and her son, um and they're awful. I mean, they've been taken to um gay parades and all kinds of things. But but the kids' behaviors are awful, and I think we can extend that to outside, to the extended relatives. If you're brave enough to do that, and I do believe God anointed me to go do that, and I did try to go bless the other two children, but my sister calls me, and I mean these little girls are abusive, they're disrespectful. I it's kind of like I don't know. It's interesting. And all of the other kids I was able to go and lay hands on and pray for after they were born, there's a total difference in how they respect you. There's a sweetness to them, almost like they've been touched by the hand of y'all, And so I just want to, put that thought out there. Sometimes that can extend your prayers over these children can extend past being mother and father, yeah.
I think so, Olga. That's wow. What a blessing you are to them.
And thank you for following that prompting and doing it too.
Yes. Did anyone feel like they did not meet the blessing at time of infancy? Any of those 4 points? Again, verbally communicating that they're wanted, nursing, consistent care, and then the father expressing significant amounts of touch and affection. Jessica.
Yeah, I think especially, and he touched on this in the book, is that like the adversary's role is to try to get you to have your child as independent as possible. And I just remember when I had my oldest and he was able to like hold a bottle on his own, I was so thrilled, when really that's not what is wanted at all. That's actually a curse and not a blessing. I wasn't really able to nurse him as because I had a nerve condition that went undiagnosed for him, but finally at the end of it, it was fixed for the other two. But I wasn't able even to hold him because I was just in so much pain when I had him, that he did not receive that skin to skin affection that he needed from me specifically. And then I went back to work at 6 weeks, and so he didn't receive it much at all. And so when he was able to be independent, we were thinking, oh, this is great. And no, it's definitely backfired as far as him not trusting us and not trusting Ya. And it's been quite evident in his life. And so Josh and I definitely worked through the prayers at the end of that chapter, to try to repair and rebuild. And then I feel the same way happened with me as a child. And I know we're not talking about that part right now, but I wasn't nursed because my dad thought it was disgusting. And so I just know that I was also just, placed in a bassinet and kind of left to my own devices in early infancy. And so I know that was just ingrained in me that was normal, and that's not normal at all. So yeah.
Olga.
I with my oldest daughter, she I had I was really young, when I had her, and nursing to me was disgusting. And my mother kept pushing, "You should nurse, you should nurse, you should nurse." And I'm thinking, I'm not going to nurse. I wish I would have listened to her because it would have created a little bit more bonding with the oldest daughter. Um, but I think that's one of the reasons why we're not bonded. I think about it all the time, and with the youngest two, I'm constantly talking about. Um, you should definitely nurse when you have children. And they're like, "Ooh, I don't want to have this conversation with you."
Olga, did you go on to nurse any of your others?
Huh?
Did you go on to nurse your others?
I did. I nursed JD for about 3 months, but it was a very volatile home. Said his name. Okay. And then I nursed the other two till about 6 months. But now I'm a proponent for nursing till they're like 3 or 4. I mean,
Sure.
I think we do not nurse long enough. It does not create a bond. And then, I mean, we were going through a lot with the girls, and I still had that dirty kind of feeling, like I did when I was 16 that does not go away. Someone needed to pray that off of me. And I do believe that it was something spiritual that was on me, but I did do it till they were 6 months. Now with my oldest daughter, um, as far as bonding goes, I went to a parenting class, government parenting class, which was pretty good. It did help me to become a better parent, but they they would tell you, like, the thing was, put them in the crib and let them cry, let them learn how to fend for themselves. That was what all of the parenting classes were telling you at the time, and probably parenting books at the time as well. Let them cry, let them learn how to soothe themselves. And now, and it was vastly different with the younger two, and even JD was um, I know. My son was attached to my hip till he was 5. I mean, I literally carried him around. He was um had such a hard time adjusting. I don't know. Things like that. I wish I would have done a little. I wish I would have known better. I wish I wouldn't have been so ignorant in some of the ways that I intended. But I was unsaved, so you know. But
Yeah.
yeah. Yeah, and I think that makes a big difference. Even in conception, but I wanted the oldest daughter. I felt like she was, um, and she was a blessing. She was a blessing to me. And like, if you understood how dysfunctional my family was, I was like, oh, this is going to be something that loves me. And I had this attachment to her, but I was 16. I mean, I needed someone to take me by the hand and say, "This is how you treat a baby. This is how you mother. This is how you nurse. This is how you, um, you know, this is how you become." Yeah. So,
And based on the comments that I haven't read all of them, but as they've come through, what I end up seeing is that this isn't just 80s babies who were treated like this, but it came from probably the generation of our parents, things happening with them, and it's just a generational curse on these generations, because we don't have mothers taking us by the hand and saying, "This is how you do it. Let me show you."
yes.
Same with men.
Yeah, and so that's the goal of going through, deliverance and healing, and even these book clubs. How can we know better and do better? How can we change our generation to come? Linda.
This was a very interesting chapter for me because some of it seemed to be true and others of it didn't, on a certain level. And I was not nursed, but I did nurse all of four of my boys for as long as they would nurse. Um, so the first one was only, I think, about 13, 14 months, and then he wasn't interested any longer, period. Then the other three, they were always good 2 to 3 years. But at the same time, um, I can see how the other ways that I didn't verbally speak as much as it appears in the book to be so helpful because I didn't learn, I mean, I didn't learn that from my parents. I mean, I did get the nursing thing because of the La Leche League thing. But um, if you don't, it just seems like it really needs to be a combination of um, input from what I'm seeing, as far as being able for them to grow up. I touched them a lot and hugged them a lot until they were like boys, like, oh, don't touch me type thing. But mine, though, seems to be the lack of being able to verbally express um, that blessing, or that I didn't know how, or that I was supposed to. And also the whole concept of not being aware of your feelings and being able to teach your children about, oh, you're happy, sad, mad, or glad, or disappointed, or hurt, or that kind of thing, that they didn't have language for that seemed to me to be a huge hole and that would make for more healthy I um individuals. So, but like some of these things, my daughter-in-law, she doesn't do, and but I feel that my son picks up the um what would you say? He picks up where she, isn't capable, or even puts into them things that are like you can't even believe. Uh, so, and then just as then the grandma, pray a lot that God will redeem the situations.
And Linda, you sound so much better than the last time I talked to you.
You
Are you
do.
feeling better? Okay.
Yes, I am, but it's been a long road. It's been 2 weeks now, and I'm still in bed pretty much. If I get out for very long, it ends up hitting me again, and I have to go back. So, but yeah, I am much better. Looking forward to
Yeah.
kicking this totally out of the way. Thank you.
Tammy, I thought you had a hand up. Did you have anything to add?
Well, I put it in the chat. I was just thinking that, though I really did fail my daughter in nursing. I mean, it wasn't my fault because I had no one to mentor me in that. Not their fault. My mom didn't nurse, so she couldn't help me. My aunt had never had a baby, naturally had a baby. And my grandmother was mentally ill, and she was my hero. I loved her dearly. And I believe she had nursed, but I don't remember her, really being much help with, uh, or I just wanted to do what the doctor said, and they said, nurse 5 minutes on each side. Well, that's the last I heard. That was in the hospital. And I didn't know that was, that would graduate. So I here I'm trying, the poor baby was starving. So when I took her for her appointments, the doctor said, she's on the threshold of not thriving. You've got to start supplementing. They didn't ask me, well, how much are you nursing? Well, you can nurse her more, nurse on demand. Nurse on demand was not a thing.
Yeah,
And
they didn't do their due diligence.
huh?
They didn't do their due diligence.
And neither did I. To be fair, I didn't either. I was a rule follower, and that's all I need to do. And so I felt, and when they had me start supplementing with a soy product, which she was throwing up. I felt like such a failure. There's something psychological. I didn't feel like my milk was doing any good. So why bother? And I just had no help at all with that. I was very thankful with my second one to have allegedly, but my point was, even so, she watched me nurse and was there to help, as a 6-year-old with her baby brother. And I think that's probably why she grew up to be a great nursing mom. I mean, aside from that, she wasn't home. She did the best she had a revelation of at the time. She worked full time and still pumped faithfully and came home and nursed every, like normally until they weaned themselves. And I was really thankful and proud of her for that. And so I believed that in some way that was imparted to her, by being in that environment when she was growing up.
Yeah.
I felt like she would, because she was so opposed to me in so many ways. I really was shocked that she wanted to nurse, because I thought she would do the opposite just because I did it. So I was so thankful.
Very good. Moving on to cursing at the time of infancy may include the parents communicating verbally and physically that the child is not wanted or welcome, and the mother withholding love, affection, or physical nurture. 2, the mother not creating a physical or emotional bond through breastfeeding or other forms of meaningful touch and nurturing. 3, the child receiving inconsistent care because mom is not steadily available to meet his physical needs or emotional needs, and therefore outsources the responsibility to an array of caregivers, relatives, daycare workers, nannies, etc. And 4, the father not showing appropriate physical touch or affection. I felt like with the blessings, I'm like, okay, check, check, check. We definitely had those, at least from our parenting experience. But then when you get to the cursing of infancy, I felt like there was a lot revealed either from me as the child or even me as the parent. My mother did not really verbally and physically make us feel wanted. I don't know that she necessarily withheld love. She just couldn't express it. And now, like breastfeeding, she stopped breastfeeding me at 6 months because, unbeknownst to her, she was already pregnant. And so I don't know if it was me pulling away because the milk just wasn't there like it was, or the taste changed, or if it was her, because I've nursed while being pregnant, and sensations change, and you don't really want to be doing that. So I don't know if it was on me, on her, or just mutually agreed upon, but she stopped nursing at 6 months. And I don't remember how long she went with my brother or sister. And then, yeah, she's definitely emotionally not there for our needs. And so then I got thinking on the parental side. So Kinsey, I would have loved to have nursed her longer, but I was pregnant, and we made it to 15 months. And oh my gosh, you guys, what a journey that was. Late diagnosed tongue tie. I exclusively pumped for the first 4 months of her life. For the most part, it was exclusive pumping. And then finally was able to introduce nursing. I think it was by 6 months. I was done pumping except for first thing in the morning and maybe right before bed. Done pumping by 9 months, pregnant at 10 months, done nursing at 15 months. So it was earlier than I really wanted to go to 2 years, and especially being pregnant, I really wanted to tandem nurse, but that didn't happen. And so, I questioned how much of that affected her. And then with Elliot, I was so, my body, it pregnancy and nursing, because on top of that, all that exclusive pumping, I donated 47 gallons of milk just from her. That was my hot water tank. It was a 47-gallon hot water tank. Like, that really put it in perspective for me. And then with Elliot, after back-to-back pregnancy and nursing, I was so sick that, it was bad. And of course, I've been questioned, how did that affect them? But I had to go back on a medication that was not compatible with nursing. So I weaned him at 8 months old. I did get him donor breast milk. So he was still on breast milk for 14 months. But what about that bond, And by 5 months with both of our children, we shipped them from our room to a crib in their own room down the hall. We just didn't know. We thought we were doing what we were supposed to.
We were working with the information that was given to us.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
Doing better with this.
Doing better with number 3. 5 years old, still in bed with mama.
Still, that could change.
He'll go. He'll go when he's ready.
Go when I'm ready.
And he was nursed. He was almost 2.5.
Mm-hmm.
2 years, 4 months. So.
And he was just like.
Well, no, I had to, because I did amalgam removal, and that's not compatible with breastfeeding. So I got to an acceptable time, and I said, okay, I need to take care of mama now. Gabby.
I was gonna say for ours, what was it? Zip's the longest. She made it 3 years and a couple of months. Nursing her. Rayleigh was 2.5 years.
Done.
Yeah, she's done, and
no more.
It's off the binky.
Oh.
We're on day 4 with nothing.
Big girl.
Yeah. But and then Malachi was 17 months, because like you, I was pregnant with Rayleigh, so I think it was just like one night he was just kind of like, meh, I don't know what this is. It's changed on me, and just quit himself. And then but with all of them, because thankfully the exclusive breastfeeding, baby-led weaning, milky mamas, like lactation support, all of that was well established by the time I had children. And also it was never never even a thought like, oh, am I gonna formula, or like everyone in my family breastfed, and no one ever made anything weird. Like granddaddy didn't care if you did it around him. Like it was a normal expected thing. So yeah, we're gonna breastfeed. Like it just, I know some moms have like my best friend had an aversion to it. Just anything touching her. And so, but she still pumped to give her baby breast milk. But so for me, it was just a matter of, and what I would try to do intentionally with all of them is, like, while I was nursing them, I'd have my phone down and just sit and chit chat with them and talk with them and make googly eyes at them while they were nursing. And then I think with every single one, I don't know if you remember that tree of life photo everybody was doing, like maybe when Malachi was a year, where you got the the Nukies and the tree going to both. So I have that with all of them. But yeah, it's definitely like a intimate closeness with your child. And, I applaud the moms who worked and still did it and were able to, like Tammy's daughter is able to pump and nurse and still have that connection and ability to feed her child that way. And then even, the ones who unfortunately were misguided by the doctors and the pediatricians, because even with Malachi, I think his pediatrician said that, oh, he's underweight and your milk's not supplying him, so you should supplement. And I was like, okay. And the first formula diaper I changed, I was like, yeah, never again. We will. I was like, I'm not working, because at the time we weren't making a whole lot of money. And so for me to go back to work for us to break even, it just, me staying home to raise our children was the wisest thing to do. But I just lost my train of thought. But that was like the other thing, because I asked, tips and advice from the other moms, and they're like, are you exclusively breastfeeding? Is your baby having diapers, pooping and peeing? Your baby is fine. And then come to find out, I just had skim milk. And then when we had Rayleigh, I had all the hind milk in the world, and she was my chunky monkey. So, that's why I tell moms, I'm like, you may just have skim milk. Nothing's wrong with you. Nothing's wrong with your baby. Keep feeding the baby.
Well, and look at Rayleigh and Malachi now. He the Haas, and she's still itty bitty.
Yeah, he all muscles. So that skim milk was doing something. No.
Tammy.
Well, also, I mean, skim milk is just a season of, I mean, sometimes you have that, because they're nursing a lot, and sometimes, you have more fat in it. So and yeah, you learn as you go with that. And yeah, your story sounds a lot like mine, because yeah, I had read a story that really helped me about why go to work and look at all of what you spend your money on that you're working for, when you could just be home saving money, not going to work. You're not buying clothes, you're not going out to eat so much because you're exhausted cooking, and you're not paying for daycare, not to mention the investment in our valuable, our children, which, value is not placed on in our culture. And well, I think I just raised my hand to say that, I just, I had said I felt like I went years, and I felt like I was like pregnant for years, because between being tied and, and it's made to feel that way. And my husband was, while he wasn't unsupportive of breastfeeding, he did make little comments, and he kind of would say little things to the babies, and that were inappropriate, and not like he didn't try to stop me, but he didn't understand it. I mean, I didn't fully understand it either, but I'm just, as we're talking about this, I'm realizing I was resentful without really meaning to be or understanding it. I was isolated without more support on a regular basis from those around me. So I'm really thankful for those of you that have so much more support. I mean, like this group and tea time and all, you've got so much support. That this is normalized as it should be, whereas before the opposite was the norm, and we were the not norm. Those of us that breastfed.
That's right.
I may have been too supportive and comfortable with women breastfeeding, as I strike up conversations, not even realizing, oh, this might be incredibly uncomfortable for them. But it was such a normal part of life for me that it never fazed me.
Yeah, that's how Brad was too. And I think the most awkward was his best friend's wife. Keep in mind, we don't care. Do whatever. Feed the baby. Do your thing. She would wear a tank top and just drop it down. And he'd just be like, okay, I don't know, Reed, you want to go outside real quick? And he was like, why does Brittany do that? And like out loud, I was like, that's your friend's wife.
I had a girlfriend over, and it was me, her, and then Drew had come and sat on the other side. You know, he had been up doing things and came over and
I
sat
was
down.
sitting next to you.
Yeah, you were
Yeah.
sitting next to her. That's what I said.
So it sounded like it was you.
No. No, she was here.
Yeah. Okay.
So her baby needs something. And so she just undoes and starts nursing, and we're just all talking, sitting on the couch. And at one point, he like, you know,
Yeah.
gave her a little pat on the shoulder.
In conversation,
And,
like,
yeah. And he's like, I'm really sorry if that was uncomfortable for you. Like, I just realized.
I just touched you while your boob was out.
Yeah.
Sorry about that. He's like, oh, we're all good. Like, all right, because I obviously
It's
didn't.
just such a way of life. We
Yeah.
don't. It's
Yeah.
It's like a spoon.
Yeah. And I even remember like growing up, like, so I would have been, when Myers was born, my baby sister, I was 5 years old, and it was literally normal as far as like, I remember like mom taking a bath, you know, and here I am now being her, where I just trying to take a bath and I'm bombarded with children. But, you know, she's just trying to take a bath and we're coming in and Myers is talking about her nookies. And, you know, it's just like, it's you know, it's the body. And she's a nurse, so everything is exactly what it is. But, you know, even Jess, she made the comment in the chat as far as all the men that were supportive around. And that was, you know, like in all the mom groups, you hear about these horror stories of like people being accosted out in public and, you know, moms shamed about go feed your baby in the bathroom. You know, the whole time in my journey of nursing, I have never experienced that.
Good.
And I really wish somebody would ever have the audacity to attempt it, because it's just, to me, the like, I don't even know where you get the gall to go up to a mom feeding her child. And it's already, especially if you're a first time mom, it's already awkward enough of trying to figure out, how do I do this? Do I do the 2-shirt method? Do I do the little nappy over? And then you get the children like mine who are like, yeah, I don't want that thing touching my face. I don't want that thing touching my head. And I will expose you to everyone if you put it near me. And so, you know, I think there was even one time when we first moved here, I had these two moms come up to me, which later they were in the crunchy group I was in. But it was just funny that like we were at the indoor playground where I think Malachi was playing and Rayleigh wanted to nurse. And so I just, you know, I do the 2-shirt method. And I was just feeding her, and they literally came up to just congratulate me on nursing my baby in public. I was like, okay, thanks. All right. And then, I mean, we've been in small groups where a lot of I don't know where he's at, where a lot of the men have even been like, oh, I didn't realize you were nursing over there. Just, oh, you know, like surprised at how discreet it is. You know, there are some people who kind of go overboard with it, but still at the end of the day, feed your baby. You know, it definitely makes a big difference to have it just an entire family who, yeah, this is what we're doing. And we're going to make sure. I remember when we first had Malachi, you don't realize how much you need to eat and drink while you're nursing, especially that first baby. And mom would literally have me like resupplied, mom and dad, of like fruits and something to eat, some protein, and mom would get the hospital cup and be like, all right, here you go. If you're feeding that baby, you need food in, you need hydration in. I was like, is it really that serious? Yeah, it's that serious. So that was, you know, that looking back on it, that's also something that very appreciative for the parents that I have. Just because it's, you know, it makes all the difference.
I almost started a fight with the wrong person once because of it, because someone submitted their, how do I say it?
I don't know what story you're telling.
This is at is that around a fire at the Charlotte Farm?
Oh,
And,
that was
yeah.
Shabbat during Sukkot.
Yeah, someone let their disapproval be known to Karen while I wasn't around, and so she was crying about it. She told me about it. And so I
I
was like,
wasn't crying.
you were teared
I
up.
was complaining.
You were teared up. And I was like, all right, well, I'm gonna do something about this. And
And let's don't make a scene.
these were people that were getting to know, so I got names mixed up. And I started to get a little loud and belligerent about it, and she calmed me down, and later we figured out that, oh, I was about to call out the wrong people and be a real jerk to someone who didn't deserve it. But that was the only time we ever had it. It was someone who was supposed to be kind of in our circle too. It was the interesting part.
Well, the sad part is she's actually pro breastfeeding, just apparently not in front of her husband. Well, we were outside and he had 360-degree views. Look elsewhere. All right. Do we have any more on the topic of ways that we may have cursed or been cursed in infancy? All right. The next part that stood out for me was Yah's protective measures in ancient Hebrew culture, pages 130 and 131. The mother made, number one, the mother made the infant for top priority in life, not putting ministry, work outside the home, or anything else ahead of the physical and emotional care of her children. 2, children are weaned from breastfeeding at a later age, creating in the child a greater dependence upon the mother and an ability to trust another person to meet their needs. 3, the cultural view of marriage as a covenant and children as a blessing from Yah created a stable environment in which the care and support of children was a priority in the family. And 4, the regular practice of honoring Shabbat as a family allowed parents to bless their children weekly throughout their years of growing up. Man, this one kind of hit me hard. I really try hard not to let ministry come between me and our children. It is hard though, because when it comes down to it, those coming for prayer, guidance, assistance, there's an instant gratification there. I mean, very simply put, there is a thank you and a change that usually takes place.
Talking to adults who understand.
Yes, that's what it is.
Talking to make changes it's a lot easier than having to try to guide a child for years to start
on the same topic
to start to grasp the concepts and apply.
Yes.
So yeah, there's that bit of like, well, this is a one and done. I got this. Let me put time into this. I understand that.
Yeah. But I don't know that has to mean that I am, in the end, neglecting children of their emotional and physical needs.
No, I mean, there's 2 of us, is the thing. So, like, especially if we have deliverance calls, that's why we were never on the same one.
Well, we can never say never. Well, sometimes
we were. Yeah, but like it has happened. But typically, we would have things scheduled so that one of us could be with the children.
Yeah. But yeah, that was one that I really feel like I on a regular basis, I need to ask myself, am I putting this above the needs of my children? At the same time, now granted, having children was still Yah's gift and blessing to us. And so there is a calling there to be a parent. But at the same time, he definitely gave me a calling and a mission to help his children be set free of the bondage and torment and suffering that they're in. So I just need to make sure that they're on the same.
So we always talk about our first ministry is the first ministry is here in the district. But with that calling and with what we do and we try to do to help others, it helps sharpen and hone our skills. For our own children, but they also get to witness it. And in doing all of this and having the children involved in so much, they are light years ahead of where we were at their age, even light years ahead of where we were 10 years ago. Yeah, so it's it can all be very complementary of each other. But sometimes we the royal we have to stop and make sure that our priorities aren't skewed about it.
Olga.
As you said, your first ministry is your children. When we went into ministry, which we haven't been in ministry in some time, and we're thinking about going back into it. But when we did ministry for 3 years and we were very active in doing deliverance, but I did see a toll being taken on our children, and they were being spiritually attacked, because I mean, we're doing deliverance and they were having spiritual attacks because of the deliverances that we were having. Um, so we actually decided to take a break, and just really focus in on the children. And what I've noticed is in a lot of families, not in you guys, I mean, but in a lot of families, especially when the kids get into teen years, or they start getting that young adult, they start rebelling really, really hard. And I think that's because people forget that their first ministry is their children, not everyone else. It's so hard. Why is it so hard to focus on that? Because there is, and maybe it is that lack of instant gratification, like you said, Karen. But I think that's really, really, really important. Ministry is great, but you need to have a nice balance, and then be willing to step away when it's time to step away, because who are you going to, I mean, the Lord's not going to come to you and say, oh, I appreciate everything that you did. Oh, but you let your children fall to the wayside. Yeah.
You made a good point, though, that ministry does take a toll. And so I think that's where the ministry in the home can falter without even realizing it. It's like, okay, cool, we just did a 3-hour deliverance phone call, right? Like, that's spiritually taxing.
Yeah.
It drains you. It takes it out of you. And then if you have children going, oh no, I want all your time, you're like, okay, like, can I have a minute? Can I take a break? But they don't understand that. They want you. So it takes some mustering it up and doing it sometimes, just because you realize that that's what they need, not necessarily because you want to. And there are the times where you just go, all right, I'm gonna peace out for a little bit, and y'all can be on your own.
Well, and that's a big reason why we aren't recording, live deliverance on Sunday. It was taxing our family, and we needed that time back.
Yep.
Still need to record it. I think it's done.
We were going to record it last week.
Well, about maybe doing it. I wouldn't say we were gonna. Tammy.
I really respect that about what you're doing on that, because your family is not going to be this age again, and and you don't even know for sure. Well, I'll just put it this way. I mean, we really need the Holy Spirit to guide us on what we do in this, that what He's calling us to do, or we've wasted that time that our family needs us. And other people may or may not even enter into it. They may or may not even get it. It may just be like a BB gun out there in the atmosphere. And when I know that in our prayer times at night lately, Abigail's been led to say, you never say just a minute, or you never say, what do you want? Or, that He's always available to us. And so whatever that looks like in our family, at the time, I think that's the example, is that we need to be as available in some way that our children know they're not a bother to us, and they're not interrupting the important stuff, And there was something I was going to say more about So my cousins were raised. There were 5 children raised by a narcissistic mother. I mean, to be fair, she was abused. She had such a spirit of rejection, and they were in the ministry.
Mm.
It was such a priority that they put their children in a children's home while they went to South America and Mexico.
Oh, goodness.
Guess what? Sexually abused. And they never, my grandmother was the one who would go, and she would have to drop them off sometimes. And when she saw the way they acted, terrified and traumatized, sometimes she just couldn't do it. She'd say, no, they're going home with me. Where they were verbally and physically abused by her husband because they weren't really called to be doing this, and they weren't equipped to be doing this. And then I would go as a teenager and go, no, I can't stand that. I would go get them. They were just never in the right environment because of the lack of true order of things, because these people did what their flesh wanted to do. They may have had a good heart to help people, but I think it was more of a need that they needed to meet in themselves, not a true calling, maybe. I mean, I'm probably judgmental, but the fruit of it was very damaging to their children. Their sons, well, since this is recorded, I'll just say that went on to domino into extremely bad fruit.
Oh man.
Mm.
As it does.
Yep.
Olga.
Oh, I just wanted to share a quick story. When we went to go do ministry one time, and the girls were, I don't know, 12 and 8, maybe 11 and 8 or something, and we went to go do ministry at a to go meet this couple at because we're trying to do things locally, grassroots kind of deliverance ministry. And so we went to go do ministry at a we just went to go meet them, and while we were gone, something spiritual attacked our home, and they say that the windows started vibrating. It was like the floors were vibrating. This is what they explained. The girls explained. They called us mid-dinner and said, "Can you come home right away?" And they actually saw. One of the girls saw a demon like above the fireplace, and saw it kind of coming at them. And so, I mean, the devil's waiting. He's crouching at the door to attack your children when you're not looking. And that was not too long after that we stepped away. Because we realized that the devil had an assignment on our family and on our children. And so, yeah, that's all.
Question. I don't know if I'm phrasing it correctly, but if it was after that you stepped down from ministry, was that a prompting from the Holy Spirit, or was that from, okay, this just happened and we need to take a step back because we don't want anything bad there?
No, I believe it was a prompting of the Holy Spirit after that, and because we started, other things were happening as well, and we were just examining everything. So it wasn't like immediate that happened, and immediately we stepped away. It was like it was what prompted us to start going, should we be doing this at this time? And so it was probably a year later that we actually stepped away. Yeah.
Gotcha.
But things like that kept happening, and I'm pretty stubborn. I'm like, like the train that never could, and I'm still, going, even if, everything's falling down around me, and you probably shouldn't keep going, and I'm going to be that one that keeps going and pushing forward. And so,
is it stubbornness or is it tenacity because you know what's right?
It could be tenacity because I know what's right. I like that better.
There you go.
Yeah.
No words. I'll do that sometime.
Yeah, I like the wordplay.
That gets me by at work a lot.
Wait till you hear his new word. We'll save it for off the recording. So any additional thoughts?
That makes it sound like
Guys?
it's something bad to
It's
say,
not.
by the way. Just
It's
for those
not.
listening to the recording,
It's
Just
just off topic.
nothing wrong with it. It's just, not what we're talking about.
Any additional thoughts on what he wrote in the book before we move on to the blessing toolbox? All right. So
Wait, is that a new hand from Olga or the same hand?
I think that's the same hand.
Okay.
Has anybody gone through these? So you've got remedial prayers to break the curse. Looks like some repentance. More repentance. Prayers to release blessing. Has anybody done these yet? I will say we have not, because we just re-listened to this chapter twice on our way to our fellowship, so we haven't even had a chance. But I would like to also rewrite these, and I'll get them put in the chat.
I like the blessings that like the and I listened to it, so I didn't read it, but and then I listened to it on 1.5, so I was trying to say the blessings right along with them, and me and Drew can talk really fast, right? But not when you're on 1.5 speed. So, but I like them, and they kind of reminded me of what we do as far as like repenting, acknowledging the sin, repenting of it, asking for Yah's forgiveness. He does a lot of pleading the blood of Yeshua. I don't agree with that, and that's okay. But I just don't see it that way. But just recognizing
Writing it in a different way.
Yeah. Which it was funny as he was saying it, I was just like, what's Cam Kieran gonna do for this? But I really liked it. And then, as far as kind of resting those areas that if you have messed up, and it did bring up a lot of, did I say anything like out of aggravation, frustration, like this little one here. I don't know if you can hear. I'm not moving fast enough putting this doll's hair together. But it was just a matter of kind of like, just kind of what it's been for Tammy, is just reflecting on, did I say anything? Did I feel any type of way at all while I was pregnant with this child? Did was I mad at Brad or in my hormones, and I don't know if we're ready to do this right now, like certain stuff like that. So I just kind of, as a make sure to cover all the bases, was saying them right along with, I never, definitely never had any intention of murdering our children. So never had those thoughts, but it's just especially like, I do know I really, really thought Malachi was a girl. And I think more so because Brad really wanted a baby girl. Irony, he's got 3 now. That I was just like wanting him to be a girl, but then kind of like, oh, I was totally wrong when we had the gender reveal. But it wasn't like a disappointment of anything. Even with this baby, I thought this baby surely thought it was a boy, because it's like, I feel totally different than the girls. And plot twist, it's a girl. But but with Malachi, more of like, I got it wrong. Like, and even with this one, when Rayleigh, accidentally told me, I was like, wait, it's a girl? And she was like, yeah. I was like, oh, well, I really didn't want to know until we had her, but oh, and then had to go check on Malachi, because he had that one tear of like, I just want a brother. Yeah.
Well, he has an Elliot.
Yeah. Well, and then it was funny because we were playing at one of the mom's house from baseball, and he has 3 sisters, and like right before we left, I think Rayleigh said something like, you and the little boy can bond over having just sisters. I was like, yeah, I guess they do have that in common. But Yeah,
Thanks
so
for
I
running
like
it,
right,
Tracy.
and I really like the blessings. Those were good.
Yep, that they were. Tammy.
I haven't said this, and I've been praying about how to put this maybe in the tea time, but I just want to put this out there. There's something I heard years ago about, I believe I can't remember if it was about Elizabeth or about Mary, the mother of Yeshua and her cousin, that when they were pregnant, that there was a reason why they secluded themselves, and that was to guard that time of the child in their womb and to let it be nurtured and not have a lot of stimulation and excitement of the surroundings around them and all the stress and all. I'm probably not putting this right. Maybe you've heard the same thing, but that it's very important to protect them from stress. That's why I said something last time, when there was something going on at tea time, like it's very important that maybe some of the higher stress things be put on the back burner during this time while your baby is vulnerable to feeling all those emotions. And so that just came to mind. And I put I told my children, I haven't really gotten into the depth of the toolbox and blessing them, or trying to repent over that yet. But I did put that out there for them. I texted a screenshot of that last part with the toolbox last time. I mean, this last thing for them to look at, just, and I have been blessing them every Shabbat. I've been sending them a blessing. So.
Oh, very good. Tammy, how did your little grandson like his gift with his little mini blessing on it?
He did. He's not real animated. He's one of the few that is not real animated. He's a bit subdued. He's always been that way. But first thing he did, he looked at it and he goes, I could tell, because I know his language, I could tell that he appreciated it and he felt honored. But he just goes, hey Mom, can I have some hot chocolate?
Aw.
He'd been a brat. He had been behaving like a brat. He's going through a thing of mistreating his brother, and his brother, who he prayed for. Well, he prayed for his sister, but he knew in his spirit and told people when they asked him what he wanted, it's a boy. He knew that, even though he was praying for his sister. But he's been treating him horrible and making him feel unloved, and so he's been being called out on that because he's turned 12 now. And so she said, no, you cannot have any, the way you've been acting, you think you're going to get a sweet treat? No, you're not going to get rewarded for that. But anyway, it was, I also wrote him a blessing in a card that I felt led to write him. And I saw a twinkle in his eye when he was reading that. And then I love the fact, Karen, that every time he sits down to have a cup of whatever, he's going to see his name, that he is meant to be a light, and that he's going to see a blessing with his face on it every time. And I'm so thankful for that. And it makes me want to do that with all of them,
Sure.
So thank you for helping.
I'm curious, Tammy, at 12. Well, let me tell you what we've been doing. It's different because we're the parents versus a grandparent. So sometimes our oldest son is not the best with the younger.
And other times he's fantastic.
And other times, like right now, they are fantastic out there. The dynamic between 2 versus 3. But anyway,
Yeah.
told him, okay, here's what you need to do. You need to give him, 4 10-second hugs a day.
Hmm. Ooh.
Now, that's easier for us to monitor and regulate because we are here in the household. But I had the thought for your grandson, and then I thought, well, I should do it for my son. And that is, if there were a simply written kind of I love you blessing for him to read to his brother just once a day, do you think he'd do it?
I think my daughter would appreciate the help because, and I believe, and Abigail has reiterated this. She said this time in their life is a blessing because it's causing desperation in the family. That's
Yeah.
a blessing. Hardship can be a blessing because
Absolutely.
if everything's going right in your life and you're just cruising along and they've got this perfect little nuclear family and there's no trouble, they don't really notice that they really need the father, but they have a problem now. And so I think she would appreciate that that help. I know she's been more receptive to my input. I spoke to them last week, I think it was, or week before when I was there, and it was so horrible. I told him, I said, this is out of control. And my daughter, who's normally, who, let's say in the past has been opposed to me because she doesn't believe what I believe, she said, that's right, it is out of control. And so she's recognizing it. And that, I think that would be wonderful.
Well, why don't we collaborate? Jessica mentioned she needs it too. If we need, I suppose we could do it in tea time. We could do it in book club chat. We could have a side chat, whatever we need to do. Let's collaborate on something and, make it nice and legible so that brothers could read it. Again, they want to be.
Yeah, we could laminate it, have it on the breakfast table, before you go to school or whenever it's the best time for that family to say, before you go to bed or whatever, this is the protocol now. You're going to speak blessings over your brother. I love that.
You mentioned he prayed for a sibling, and even though he prayed for a sister, he knew it was a brother. I can tell you with ours, somewhere between the first 9 and 12 months of having Finnegan, both of our children, when they came to give me hugs and kisses at bedtime, would say, thank you for getting him out. They loved him, and they do still love him so much.
Yeah, Katie's a little mama too.
Yeah, she is. But I mean, that's part of being, I think, a girl, being that extra year and a half older. Yeah. And it never got old. I mean, it was an amazement.
Yeah, my son's children love and guard their baby brother, and he can be a pistol. He can be really, he knows he's the baby. He's challenging at times, but they love his humor. They love, he's the same age as Finnegan, and but
we have our pistol too.
But no, Luke was he was he told me though that this is an interesting take from from a child. He says that he misunderstood. He thought that the baby was going to come out already able to be played with. He thought it was come out big. I don't know how he, put that together in his mind, but I do remember him looking confused when I brought him up to the hospital to meet him, and they had this photo shoot already, and he was, I mean, compared to the exuberant child who couldn't wait for his baby and who was over the moon when he found out he was going to have a baby, to see the look on his face in the hospital was like
When he got a baby.
not at all. Look, he looked withdrawn, and I'm like, I don't understand, I don't know. And I guess he's like, when can I play with him? When can I, wrestle with him and stuff? So anyway, maybe
That is precious.
yeah.
And maybe that's something that you add into his blessing of his brother, that I thought I was going to get to instantly play with you, but we had to grow together, and now I do get to play with you, like reminding him, you now have a brother you can play with him.
I think what I'm going to do today, we'll put the dogs outside for a few minutes. We'll move that coffee table, and the boys have to take me to the ground. We're going to have.
Oh yeah, do that without a girl in the house.
Exactly, because she always waits till my back is turned and like stomps on my head. So, hey, speaking of, what you doing?
Yeah, Tammy, and I think that's a really good reminder, and it's funny because it may be from like y'all's generation, because mom, that's precisely with every baby what she will double check in on, and it may have to do with being a NICU nurse, so she sees the effects of babies not doing well or having been stressed in the womb, and even with Zip, which now the irony, because she would be like, you need to stop being so angry because you're gonna pass that on to the baby. It's like, I'm not angry. I just need people to understand what I'm dealing with. I need your son-in-law to listen to me. But and I was like, she's not gonna be spicy, she's not gonna be angry. Like, Mom, that's just a myth. She might, I mean, you've met Zip, I mean, and this is her now. But yeah, she's the pistol of the family for sure. Um and she's making faces at me. But it's funny because I'm like, all right, Mom, you might have been onto something there, because a year in we were like, oh, there's a little attitude coming out of there. And so even now with this baby, Mom will FaceTime and she'll be like, okay, well, how are you doing? How's the baby doing? Well, are you doing too much around the house? I'm like, no, Mom, I'm not even gonna tell you. You know what I'm doing. You know the deal. You know how I run this house. But and even like her and Brad, they have a good relationship where he can basically hit 911 and she's up here in a heartbeat. So yeah, it's a needed reminder.
And know your passion. Hey, I'm the same way. And growing up, our family dynamic is we were very passionate in the way that we deal with each other. And my mother takes that from her traumatic background as being angry and yelling at each other. And we were confused. We're like, who's yelling? We're not mad at each other, but that's the way she heard it.
Yeah.
And I know that my daughter's youngest did not appreciate passion. His dad's very, I want to be careful not to word curse here. His dad has some issues with ADHD, and so there's always a lot of excitement in the family. And he, when he was a baby, he just wanted to go back in the house and be with him and Mama and nurse and just be calm and let brother and dad be out there yelling and wrestling and hollering and stuff. And he needed that time to be peaceful. He needed peace. And so, yeah, it's something that when you're having your time with Abba in the mornings, ask him how you can guard your baby during this time. It's just a season.
You both had brought up a couple times the things that happened to us while pregnant, and science has caught up with that. It's been several years, maybe even up to 10 years ago, where I read that when when the mother goes through something traumatic, big traumatic, a major death in the family, probably a separation or divorce, major car accident, major illness, these big traumatic things, that it does affect like that imprint on the children. And my bestie, when she was pregnant with her first, and I think she's 14. Yeah, she's 14 this year. Yeah. She was born, oh gosh, it was end of August, 1st of September time frame, right before her brother's birthday. I think she's the 31st, August 31st, and her brother's birthday was on the 1st of September. But her brother died of, it was so sad. It was tragic. He died of an overdose, but wasn't found for like 3 days. So at that point, he had practically exploded in his car. And her and her mother knew that he had been missing. And so she was at her mom's house when the sheriff showed up. It was a lot for her and of course this baby to take in. So anyway, all that to say, science has caught up with that, and it does imprint on the children. But I do think that through the right prayer, really getting to the root of things and telling the enemy, you don't have a stronghold here, that can be overcome.
My mom tells the story about when she was pregnant with me, big pregnant with me. They were going out to the car and she saw a grass snake. She was terrified of snakes. She saw a snake go into the car and they never saw it come out from under the car. So she just knew that it had gone in the car and she did not want to get in the car. My dad, was like, oh, come on. It did not get in the car. It can't get in the car. Just get in the car. And so they're driving down the highway and the snake comes up the antenna of the car. Well, she lost it. She freaked out. She just went ballistic. My dad couldn't believe that it really had. And he pulled over and got it off the car. But, I'm wondering, because I do have a terror of snakes and it has grown over the years. And, maybe not necessarily grass snakes, but they do gross me out. And so I have been wondering about that while we've been reading this, this book.
Ooh. Yeah, no, thank you. I pulled over screaming at one point with a wasp in my car, and I was by myself, and I'm pretty sure I was pregnant with Finnegan, and I pulled into a gas station, and I went to these men who were pumping gas in their trucks because I figured men truck manly, and I said, there's a wasp in my car, will you get it out? Olga.
I was just curious, y'all mentioned telling the devil and to, that you don't have a foothold on this. Now, what does that look like, in a practical way, without being crazy? Or I do think the devil, like, he puts his foot on things and he tries to, and I also understand the bee thing. Like, I was going through some spiritual deliverance over the summer and over the spring, and I kept having bees. Like, we have no like major bees nest, like, bees kept showing up around my car, inside my car. It's weird. I couldn't get in the car sometimes. And that's a different subject, but in a practical way, what does that look like, if you could share?
Oh, well, that's a great question. I feel like I've been very blessed that even in my pregnancies, I haven't gone through anything that is traumatic. you know, if I were to think about my bestie situation, because I mean, this obviously that was almost 15 years ago, 14 and a half years ago. I was not in church. That was in my phase of I don't have to do
What the Bible says.
well, not necessarily that, but like I don't have to go to church and I don't have to act a certain way because I have a personal relationship with God. You know, that was that phase of life.
Like I
So
said.
where I sure would sometimes pray about things I was going through. I don't know that I necessarily thought about praying for others with the things that they were going through. So if this were to happen today, and I think it also to some degree matters where is this other person in their faith. But I think I would help walk my friend through prayer of breaking ungodly soul ties between her and her brother. I probably encourage between her and her mother. Praying a blessing and protection over her child. Commanding spirits attached to leave, obviously resting her soul's heart. I would have done this with Mama D as well. She was like a second mother to me. And encourage her, because I think as an outsider, there's only so much I can do. But encourage her to make sure that this event doesn't take root in her life, that it doesn't take root in the life of her child. And I think that's probably my practical application on that. Does anyone have anything to add or disagree with?
I added my comment in the chat. Just, for me, it's, I guess, the practical ways, just remembering the verse, resist the devil and he will flee. And what does that look like? Kind of once you come privy to the thoughts that are not yours, the thoughts that are from the enemy, rebuking those thoughts, captivating those thoughts, and not coming into agreement with them, as well as just not turning to your old sin and old habits, and truly walking out intentionally your renewed mind as well, and your new life. Because what is it, Ezekiel 36, I believe, where you have a renewed mind, a renewed spirit, stony heart turned to flesh.
Yeah.
So I think of those verses that speak truth to how we should be walking it out. And then, just giving yourself grace that you more than likely are going to stumble at some point, because we still are in our flesh and Yeshua has not returned to take that away. But knowing, to me, it's kind of like, all right, I'm on to your game, Satan. So now let's play. Like, I'm not falling into any of this with you. So I think it's just becoming aware, spiritually and naturally, on where the devil tries to trip us up at, and just try to stop walking into it. Don't walk into the baited arguments, or the, like, kind of, I guess, walking in the spirit more, and knowing when this isn't fruitful, this isn't productive, and I can't discern what's happening here, but I know something's up. So, and being in prayer continually.
Yeah. Well, and we've seen, especially since coming into this deliverance and healing walk, we've seen where grief, well, actually even before this, I could see where grief just takes over. That you now are operating in grief. Mm-hmm. Grief is your identity, and it's not that it's wrong to grieve. There was a loss, but we got the goal should be to move forward. Linda.
whenever I become aware of something trying to take away my peace, I always say the James verse, and I say, Father, I'm submitting to you. Help me to know how to submit to you if I'm not, but I'm submitting to you, and therefore I'm claiming that Hasatan will have to leave now because I'm submitted to you, and it says that he will flee. And so I go immediately into then asking God, how am I not submitting to you so that the devil has this opportunity right now? Because I'm resisting him now and telling him to leave.
Good word there, Linda. Olga, does that help to answer your question? Did it give additional questions? No.
It did help me to, to help answer that question. I think it's good to do that, but then sometimes, you start getting focused on that. One thing that, like you said, you mentioned the grieving can become, and I think that was something that was starting to happen with me personally. It was that I was starting to, and like grieving was starting to become part of my identity. And, but grieving is not necessarily a bad thing. You can grow, from that. So, yeah, but then I don't want to be, mm, the devil, I don't know. See, I go back and forth. Like, is the devil constantly trying to trip us up? And then other times I think, okay, is the devil not, like, I don't want to find the devil at every corner. Sometimes God, like, he wants us to, he wants us to come to a certain place with him. And so he's desiring that from us. And so he's encouraging us by allowing certain things to happen. And sometimes it's not our fault. Sometimes, it's not that the devil has a foothold, it's that we are, need to come to this certain place with Yahweh, a certain closeness with him. And so that's something, it's good to think about Job, but on a practical daily basis, it's like, I don't want to be the one that's constantly going, the devil's got a foothold here, but then on the opposite spectrum, I'm not, I become passive and don't do anything, and I know that I should be doing something. Does that make sense spiritually? Yeah. Especially where it comes to the girls, like, the younger girls. I feel like there are certain things like I should be going, we need to definitely pray about that, or, but then I just find myself being passive because I don't want to, I'm trying to break the habits of old and break the traditional habits of old that came from, my mother, or the church background that I have, and so what is the middle ground? What does that look like? And even breaking the chains of, the church system, and I think that's really important. What does that look like? And, how much do they have right as far as that goes? Um, so my mother, like, my mother would lose her keys. My mother would lose her keys, and she would come, first thing she would do is she would tell me or whoever she lost her keys, that we stole them, and nobody stole her keys. Then she would say the devil had his foot on the keys, and maybe the devil did have his foot on the keys. And then she would come to me and she'd say, you're prophetic, so tell me where my keys were. And I don't know, I would start praying around the house, and I'd say, oh God, will you show me where her keys are? Like, because she's like doing this thing. And I would get a visualization of where the keys were, and I would go find the keys, right? but she would be praying the whole time. The devil's got his foot on the keys, and she's like frantic and angry. And I don't want to be that person, you know? So it's like, how do you find the balance? What does that look like? Like, what is, and sometimes I think maybe maybe the devil did, have his foot on the keys. Sometimes I wonder if she had some um, multi multiple personality issue, or and she did need deliverance in a lot of things. And I really hate the way that the church treated her, and it was not okay. At the same time, I don't want to be that person constantly going, the devil's got his foot, something on this or that or the other. Sometimes if your car's not starting, I can remember when I was working and my car wouldn't start or something right away, and I would think the devil's got his foot on this. This is very new in my salvation. And then maybe I would go out there and try to start my car later, and then where I would have been passing 15 minutes earlier was a car wreck and somebody's fatality. So I'm just saying, sometimes things happen. It's not that the devil has his foot on it, it's that the Lord's trying to protect you. And so what does that really look like? And because I found myself saying, the devil's got his foot on this, there should be a release here. And then I'm finding out later, like, oh no, the Lord was protecting me in this moment, and I should have been thankful.
So what stands out is the constant agreement of the devil has his foot on this. We are to be the head and not the tail. We are to stop the serpent. And I just think that if the belief was that the devil has a hold on this thing, instead of claiming that and coming into agreement with it, commanding the enemy to leave, devil, get your foot off my keys, off my car, off my whatever, and using our authority in Yeshua. But now you bring up an interesting point with, well, my car wouldn't start, but then 15 minutes later it did. But hey, I think that 15 minutes saved me from a car accident. I view that almost like I do when I have a dream that I've actually remembered, but it's not super clear. And in those instances, I say, yeah, if this vision wasn't from you, then I rebuke it in Yeshua's name. And so I think it could be the same. If my car not starting is of the devil, then I command you to go. But yeah, if this is from you, thank you and give me peace. And I think that could be used in any of the scenarios that we're faced with. Tammy, I think your hand was up next.
Yeah, I was just topping it out so I could kind of put this in. What I feel like I'm hearing is that we need to be asking y'all to help us to let go of the past, being afraid of false beliefs or walking in a false or pursuing just darkness, rather than just developing this relationship with him that, like you're saying, we're constantly asking him as our Father who wants to speak to us. What are you saying here? What's going on? And then the other thing is, when there are seasons that we go through where we may need to be, for instance, what Gabby mentioned earlier. For me, when I've been in a season that my soul needs to be reminded, you're not in charge. It's okay that you step back and let my spirit be the one to rule, because my spirit is the one that's meant to rule over my soul. So sometimes I've had to actually say those things to kind of help teach myself how to walk in peace and not be constantly worried about being deceived or whatever. Now, I don't find that I'm having to do that as much these days, to actually say those things, because it's coming more natural just to walk that way. But as soon as I start finding that I'm out of peace, worried about which way to turn, that I'm going to fall into deception or fall into a lack of peace or miss the mark somehow, then I need to step back and realize this is not being led by the Spirit. This is being led by my soul, by fear, by doubt, whatever it is. Whatever it is. If I'm not walking in peace, there's a problem here. I'm going in to the Spirit to inquire of my Abba to see what's out of order here. And there's not a formula. There is not supposed to be a formula. I just need it all written down so that when I hit this encounter, I can go, oh, check. It doesn't work that way. It's not meant to work that way. We were created for relationship. We were created to communicate with Him and get our answers from Him. Now, sometimes
if we listen to the Spirit in those times of prayer, the Spirit will tell us the things, because like you said, there is no formula. There's a lot of points that you may hit. Sometimes you need to hit all of them, but the Holy Spirit will reveal what needs to be said. Gabby.
Yeah, and I was just based off the question of what was practical on how we do that. Those are the practical ways of kind of resisting the enemy. Not to say that every single thing that we're encountering is the enemy. That I think comes with our growth and our discernment, our wisdom and understanding of what is this, and like you said, Tammy and Karen, like when a situation is happening, going to the Father, what are you trying to show me in this right now? But there's also at times you can discern when this is not of this is not the season we're in. This is a pure distraction. This is something from the enemy that's setting us up for a hurdle. And then in the example you used, Olga, with the mechanical issues, stuff like that, I think you have to also then see what's happening. Like, I think whenever the last time we came to y'all's house, Karen, I was getting aggravated that my people weren't ready when I wanted them to be ready. And it was like, Brad was getting aggravated because we weren't ready either. And it was like, oh, they're probably asleep. Like, we don't even need to leave this late. I was like, I will message them right now and find out. And sure enough, they're awake, whatever. But it's kind of like, okay, when that's happening, we have to take a step back and like, why are we getting so frustrated? Why are we upset? Like, we're going to get there. It's gonna be fine. Like, we're more aggravated that it's not happening when we want this to be happening. And in those moments, we will stop and just thank Yah. I don't know what you are protecting us from. I don't know what you are keeping us from, but thank you as we travel on these highways and byways that you keep your messengers around us and surrounding us, and that we get to and fro safely. And so stuff like that, I think that comes with our growth and learning to discern when, okay, this is of the Father, this is not of the Father. And same with our thoughts when we're starting to be real over something that especially is old, happened in the past. Abba's not bringing that up for you to be aggravated over. If anything, he's bringing it up for you to maybe walk through some healing. If there's a wound that hasn't really been closed, he would be bringing it up. The Spirit would be convicting you in that way and revealing it to you in that way. If it's being brought up for you to then like reel over, yeah, that person did slight me and I am mad at that. Yeah, that's probably not the Father. That's the enemy trying to bait you into opening up a door, so it's certain things like that. It's something that we're gonna get better at in time. Like, I just remember Peggy Ruth Ministries, that I think it's one of her testimony videos, where she talks about right now we are practicing for when the actual hurdles, when the actual moments come that the enemy is going to, try to pull the rug out from under us. And in this season, we are practicing how to be spiritual warfare, how to be discerning. And so it's, with everything, with practice, you get better at it. And so, I mean, I think that's just where we're at now is we just have to learn to listen to the voice of Yah, the Holy Spirit, and learn how to turn to him. And I think that's all of that encompasses how we apply this practically in our walks, and not get so headstrong or go down the dark path of demonology and everything's a spirit and I need to know the name of every spirit so I can call it out and have a conversation with it. No, you don't. Just all the unclean spirits attached to everything that is making me not be righteous. You gotta and we don't gotta spend all day doing this. The Holy Spirit can let you know what's causing it, and we can go from there. So I think it's a delicate balance is probably the best way to get that. But again, this comes with our growth. So
yeah, I've been really blessed that, gosh, for decades, at least 2, probably longer, I have tried to find the good in every situation. So sure, maybe you've got a mechanical problem that's going to make you late. It may be from the enemy, it may not be, but I tell you what, the enemy's going to try to use it. Just like, what is it? You stub your toe getting out of bed and they say you woke up on the wrong side of the bed, or you just need to go back to bed and start over. No, you have the opportunity to say, okay, I stubbed my toe, it hurt, but that doesn't have to define my day. Or, I was put up for adoption and unwanted. It doesn't have to define your life. My child died of an overdose. Grief doesn't have to be my persona. We don't have to walk in this. That there is deliverance, there is healing. There can be blessings even in bad situations. So with that, you guys, it has been 2 hours. We need to go ahead and bring things to a close. I want to thank each of you for being here and contributing, whether speaking or in the chat. And so next week we'll be going over blessing your child at the time of puberty. And yeah, so 10 a.m. next Sunday. And I hope that this chapter is very helpful. Again, we do have our book club chat if there are things that need to be further discussed or questions. And otherwise, we'll see y'all next Tuesday. Or Tuesdays, listen to me, where did that one come from? Next Sunday. So shalom to your home.
Shalom.
Shalom.
I can hit all my right buttons here.